Welcome, listeners, to Conversations with James Horak. Before we listen to some of the information given to us by James about the EMVs around the Sun and our solar system currently, I'd like to read something that he wrote for the blog called "The Time for Sleep is Over, Human Race." Assuredly, we are all interested in surviving this planet and its inhabitants past this crisis, one which compels all our awareness to even comprehend. EMVs are not sentient in ways that communicate to those possessed of divided consciousness. Words are of absolutely no benefit, only feelings and visions, unperplexed by ambivalence associated with minds here. I am not ET. I have dealt with ETs, but we keep our distance over issue of Earth and its people. Having stepped away from exercising what was expected of me by ET emissaries from worlds that view Earth as problematic, I am regarded as having gone native. They feel that by trafficking with EBs and by an inordinate and pathological resistance to change, the inevitability is one of counter-evolutionary threat. On the other hand, I look at EBs as a complexity for giving somewhat mankind's persistence to retain social evils otherwise aberrant. The time for discussion approaches an end. You will either clean up the mess and end the leadership of those responsible, or this will end. It is all a matter of recognizing the reality of your situation and acting in concert along lines of moral determination. The ETs have tried to reach Earth's leadership. Now it is up to you to find leadership that can be reached. The sleep is over.
The thing about most people is they build this idea that nothing good can happen to them to help them get out of a slump or whatever, unless they just totally succumb to all the bullshit that they're told by virtue of the system.
Yeah.
It's a form of slavery. Those are the only people that are miserable, because if you look at them, they never have enough.
No.
They don't know how to live within their means. When their husbands or their wives, whichever, get advanced, so does their spending habits. So they always keep them in the same economic slump.
See, that's one of the things that's always worried me, because money changes people. I don't care what anybody says. Money changes people to a degree. But having money requires responsibility morally and mentally as well, because...
I wish that were true.
Yeah, well...
It should be true, but it's not.
No,
if you look at the monsters and what they're doing, look what they did to Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
Look what they've done to the world.
See, this is one of the reasons I don't like money, and I'm quite happy to live without money, because I don't think money should exist. It just doesn't bring any happiness to anybody. Even the ones that have money are not happy with it.
No.
They're never happy with what they've got. And this is one of the reasons I'm not interested in money.
I felt that way about things all my life. I don't understand anybody that doesn't feel that way, to tell you the truth.
No, I don't. I never have. Do you know, I have a recurring wish, a dream, a wish, a want. And it's to be sat on a ridge in the front of a truck with you, just sat watching the EMVs. And I can see it in my head even now.
Actually, it wasn't a ridge. Where we were is cliffs overlooking that whole valley to the west. The ridge where that valley is, where that operation, like I was explaining, where they go up and down that creek, that is further back east, a little over a mile, up on that height.
Yeah.
But we were overlooking this plain that the Gunnison and Dolores come together at, and then they go into the Colorado. And there's a Dewey Bridge right there. And this area where these circles were is just northwest of the Dewey Bridge, about 2,000 yards. And if you go out there in the day, you won't see any evidence of anything having been there. But at night, you see all kinds of activity in these lights that are coming up and down, moving around in the air. And these circles of blue and yellow lights. It's really something. And, you know, it's right there in front of everybody's nose. It's like what's going on here where I live.
Yeah.
And were you the one that, I was talking to them and Kevin was standing at the door, and I said, Kevin, how often you are seeing UFOs and anomalies here?
That was me.
And he said, constantly.
Constantly, yeah. Well, you're convicted to what you know. See, you know what you...
And what I'm going to do is I am going to test the water for the people that are on the inside that I think once people make a demonstration of resistance, they'll come out of it.
Yeah.
And the thing will cave in from the inside.
But
if I have to stand alone, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
The pain of death is one thing. How long does it last?
A couple of minutes, hopefully.
Depending on how good a shot they are. I know how good a shot I am, and I know I'm going to take as many of them with me as I can, because they're not doing any good here. It's just like those two idiot Mormons. You're not doing any good here. I mean, if you know what I know, and a person's life is meaningless, and they're not contributing to their own family, and they won't be missed, because they're not missable.
No. I know what you mean.
And they'll have a better chance of amounting to something on the next time around, depending on how many efforts that they've made. So, no. People that cling to life, it's a different kind of greed, really.
It is.
I mean, it is.
But is it because they just don't know what there is afterwards?
They think that's all there is to it. That's what they're told. Look at the kids today. The kids are not allowed to believe in anything other than materialism.
I want to ask you something. You once said to me, "This is my last time here." What did you mean?
It's this planet's last time. If it doesn't get over this hump, this planet's going to be a sun.
Yeah.
This will be a binary system.
Yeah, I didn't know that before, and I've always wanted to ask you, but the moment just never came up.
This is the last time for this planet.
Yeah, I think it's probably got to the point. When you know so much of what is going on, the more you know, the harder it becomes to...
Besides, there's some great plans for Jupiter and its moons.
Really? Okay, this is the question that I really want to ask. I'm trying to sort of take into consideration the fact that we're not fully manifested as well. But say when I die, would I then go where? To the chambers and then go somewhere else? Or...
Go into the sun. You go into the sun so that your matter becomes compatible with the soul life that's inside those chambers.
Okay.
And once that happens, you can actually go anywhere.
Do I get to choose?
Well, it's suggested to you to go in and to meet with others and make your peace. You go in, and people that you've lost, people that you love, and that may go with you when, the time comes. If there's a great struggle here and you lose, they'll be there.
Right.
And you might want to go in, make your peace. It won't be like you won't remember the horrible things, but you'll remember the things that identify you to them. It'll be a different kind of, but you might want to do that. And if you don't, you can go anywhere. But you will have the energy, and you have the ability to go into suns when you get weak, to regenerate that energy into fashion. You'll have options you can't imagine. But 99.90% of the people go into those chambers and never want to come out again.
Right. So you don't automatically go into the chambers?
No, you go into the sun.
Right.
You lay in the sun like people lay on a beach soaking up sunlight.
Wow.
You're soaking up energy. It's the most magnificent feeling there is. There's nothing like it.
I've got chills running up my spine.
It takes a great deal of energy, but the thing is that in science you have what's called conservation of energy. You have the same thing with what is going on with the EMVs and the sun and everything. Only all of the energy taken is returned. It's a self-implementing process, and I wouldn't even try to explain it to anyone. Just take my word for it. You take an EMV that's anywhere in the universe, anything that tries to approach it gets within, say, 75 or 80,000 kilometers of it. They know immediately not to go any further.
Really?
Now, you have had occasions where EMVs will be part of something like on the moon or wherever, well, they'll be part of something, and they will shut down a lot of that energy.
Right, so they can turn it.
And the ETs may come within 10 miles of them or whatever, but they still can't see the details of it. All they see is like on the pictures that are taken by probes of the EMVs down in the craters of the moon or wherever, like in that Streckling book. Fred Streckling's We Found Alien Bases on the Moon,
Oh, right.
which is composed of NASA photographs.
Yeah.
That's all that's in it.
Yeah.
And they show lakes and they show structures, whatever. Well, that's a very rare occasion, and that's when I am instructing something to help in accordance with a problem that has occurred involving ET. That's very rare. That has been observed. That there have been a couple of times when EMVs were near craters and that there were ET vehicles not too far away. Everything that's in the sun is directly related to the EMVs. Now, there are different kinds of specialized vehicles, different kinds of specialized, but they're all appendages of an EMV. What's going on in Utah, in that Canyon Valley, that is, they look like just the kind of UFOs that you'd see. What they are they're energy units, and they are driving machinery that's down deep below, maybe 35 or 40,000 feet below. And what they're doing is they're extracting material and then casing around it so that it doesn't lose the structure of the earth itself, doesn't lose any of its problems. Then they are interlacing connective networks with other problematic structures in the Gulf of Mexico and elsewhere that have been weakened by oil exploration and exploitation, et cetera, to keep the vast network of sinkholes that would develop from the extraction. See, what's going on is that oil, when it's compressed, first of all, it doesn't come from ferns that are rotted from tropical jungles like you're told. But when oil is compressed, it has no give to it. If you reach a certain compression of oil, it's just like solid rock. So there's no structural integrity when it's pooled and, it's in these pockets. There's no test on the mantle of the earth or by the mantle of the earth and the changes in the mantle of the earth below the crust. So when you take the oil out and you put seawater in there, thinking that that's going to prop it up, the seawater is going to change. Seawater is going to be absorbed to some extent. Seawater is not going to have the cohesiveness. The seawater is not going to give the support that's necessary to keep these weakened sides and structures left by the oil pockets that were taken out from caving in. And you have major crust movement, major problems, et cetera, et cetera. So what they're doing is, there are a number of purposes. There are actually two areas like this on Earth. And from those two areas on Earth, it's possible for EMVs to patch up the weaknesses that go deep in the crust of the Earth and close to the mantle. And that's what they're doing. And they're extracting material, which, like they place in the rings of Saturn in this system. And in other planets elsewhere, and to some extent in a couple of planets here, other than Saturn. They place this where it will orbit and not move into the planet, and be exposed to cosmic bombardment, break it down, and then when it's ready, it will remove it and bring it to wherever they want to bring it. They brought some recently to Jupiter. Jupiter's in a process. It's kind of like a furnace right now. Just think of the whole planet as being furnacing. And when that's done, Jupiter will be an extraordinary home for just about anybody who wants to live there.
Wow.
Now, the inhabited moons around Jupiter, there is life on Jupiter.
Yeah.
It's not sentient. I mean, there's individuals there that are working that are sentient.
Yeah.
But it's not a home for a fledgling civilization to develop beyond into a civilization. That's not possible.
Okay.
And Earth was not stable at the time that man first came to this system.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was a lot more stable, or let's say more user-friendly to life than Jupiter. But Jupiter can be changed very quickly.
Mm.
Scientists have no idea what's going on Jupiter.
No, but I'm sure they'd love to know. But then would they? Would they even comprehend it? That's what gets me.
No, no.
Big deal. And
well, the only thing that's going to hit the media and be discussed is going to be what goes in circles.
Or sends people in circles. It never actually sends them off where they need to be going because they don't want us to do that.
Have you noticed how quiet Hoagland has been since he fucked up jumping on that doomsday bandwagon with the Gulf of Mexico, the fractured Gulf floor and all that? Well, like I said, that goes on all over, and it's being accounted for and treated about. And I tried to say, yeah, there are problems, but, don't be concerned about it or anything. And the fact of the matter is, you're going to be concerned over anything. And here's the thing. That I mentioned this before, but here's the thing that pisses me off most about it. In playing this doomsday game, they take the emphasis off of the fucking Corexit and all the other shit that we could have done something about, that we could have actually attacked.
Yeah.
And they make people think, well, what difference does it make if it's going to all come apart anyway?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't, everybody forgets the Corexit and everything else. The President of the United States says, oh, it's going to be better than it was before, and all this shit. Lying dog shit. And of course, the people that are down there, they're not getting any kind of publicity. There's nothing coming out where they're telling, hey, we'll never be able to fish these waters again. Hey, there are people that are still dying. And hey, there's human arms, legs, and torsos washing up on the beach. Where'd they come from?
Yeah.
No. And if they do any specials, human interest shit, it's on, oh, this couple is reuniting after Auschwitz. 60 years later.
I know, and it's
who gives a shit?
Yeah,
who gives a shit? I don't give a shit. It's nice that they live long. It's nice that they survived. My heart goes out to them. I want to know about more important things people need to be doing things about.
I know. This is just why I love spending time with you, because you're the only person who ever understands and knows what needs to be done.
Have you fully grasped how much more like that you are than you were a year ago?
Yeah.
So you're my experiment.
I think you've done
Hans is my experiment. Mark is my experiment. Look, what I do to my plants and stuff, I do to you guys. I try to make out of my backyard what I want the whole earth to be.
Oh.
That's what we all need to do.
I know. And I just wish that the earth were able to, without blinkers, without restrictions, without religion, without politicians, without financial restraints, be able to hear everything that you say, because it's just amazing. It's not even who you are, it's the fact, it's the sense you talk, it's the clarity that you give, the nonsensical attitude, and the caring.
Well, I know what I am. I'm just, to myself, I'm extremely redundant. What I enjoy is seeing people who are taking these steps, and in spite of what's happened to them and been done to them in the relatively limited range of their experience, are growing fast and meeting the need, like you and like so many others that are becoming aware that the truth has its own power.
Yeah, very much so. You plant that seed. If you're telling the truth, that seed will grow and grow and grow. And I'm watching it grow right now with the videos. They're having the effect.
And, I knew Hans when he saw what that guy did with some of his work.
Yeah.
And he maintained an interpretive loyalty that had its integrity with ours. And he jumped on our bandwagon, and he's become one of us, and we need to be flattered.
Yeah.
Always remember, when the poet said that the greatest form of flattery is imitation.
Yeah.
Well, it shows how little humanity Linda Howe has and how much humanity you and Hans have, and I'm just a fucking critter.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am. I'm not. Look. I've been through this so many times, and this is no growing deal for me. I ought to be this. I ought to fucking have gotten somewhere in all these years. But you and Hans, no, you are my successes.
Oh.
You're my, I mean, to me, I'm like an outsider. I'm like somebody that this is no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I already knew. I already had the fucking game plan, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
So what, I'm like a guy that has already jumped ahead and read the answers to the exam.
Yeah.
And come in and, this, but you and Hans,
We didn't have them.
no, you have put faith and trust, all the noble virtues. I'm not tested.
No, I suppose you're not really, are you?
No. So I don't get as much credit as you guys do.
I see a lot clearer now.
Yeah.
But, see, the thing is, I kind of do it not to please you, but because I aim to please. Because you've given me so much that I want to give back to you by showing you that I can grow, that I'm not like everybody else, and that in a way that you can trust me to not be like everybody else, because I want to prove to you that I'm not like everybody else. And
well, you see, that worries a lot of people, because this is what gurus try to achieve in their victims. They try to get them in that state so that they can do no wrong. But you see, the difference between me and you and a person that's been victimized by a guru is that they feel obliged and never draw a line of objectivity in the sand and say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense.
yeah.
You contradict me whenever you feel that you should. You know that my meanings are not coming from a god or anything, but they're coming from an active mind. And to treat it that way, and you feel free to exchange with me and everything, there's never been a state where I'm on a platform so above yours, you can't approach me, and you can't reproach me if you think I'm wrong.
You're right.
Now, that's the difference, and that's important, because somebody like Kevin Dunn comes along.
Yeah.
They come along and they look for every kind of misunderstanding or weakness or whatever that person has towards another, and they'll work on that. And they'll take that and they'll build that into something that it isn't on the basis of logical fallacy. And then they poison the water.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised how people that you think more of are not above having their water poisoned by that type of person.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have not, like you've worked things out pretty well. You know why that you are loyal to me. You know why, where you have confidence in me. You know all those things. There's not anything for that fuck to work with.
No, there isn't. Not at all.
But how rare are you? You're exceedingly rare.
Am I really?
Yeah.
Wow. But you're...
I've spent a lot more time with Terry.
Yeah.
Terry's not a dumbass, but Terry is so ambivalent. And so, there are people that can work her, and her family still working her. If they weren't, she would not have taken
that off. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. See, when you say that I'm rare, I suppose really, if I'm honest with myself, it's not until the last 9 months that I've realised just how rare I am in many, many ways. Because I am not like everybody else.
No.
And I spent many years trying to be like everybody else. And I was never happy. I was always searching. I was always on the run. And it was an emptiness that was only and has only ever been filled by you. And I don't mean a teenage crush on you or, the depth of my love for you. there's only one thing that has ever fed whatever it was I was looking for and was running around constantly looking for, and you are it. Who you are, what you represent, what you tell me, the knowledge you give me, the way you test me, and just everything that you are. You know, don't get me wrong, I've had moments where I've laid in bed and gone, Torz, what on earth are you getting into? They are so rare, but not for a long time. I mean, I'm talking within 2 months of knowing you. But there was always something inside me that I trusted, and it was a feeling, a sensation, that I trusted my gut instinct, and I just knew that you were everything that you said you were, and everything that you were saying to me had a purpose to it, and was the truth. And I could never explain that to anybody else, because nobody knows you like I do. And I think I can honestly say that now. Nobody knows you like I do. Not here, anyway. Not here and now. This time. And I treasure that. I really treasure it.
Well, we've had a lot of contact, and I can't recall a single time a crossword has ever crossed our path.
No.
And, you know, that's rare because we have had intense discussions. And man to man, you can't do that.
No.
Even with Mark, I had to draw Mark up 2 or 3 times.
Really?
And look what happened with John and David. I think I know what their problem is and has been all along. I think that both of them have no concept in a male soul guide.
Yeah, that could well be it. You can only see a female soul guide.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a soul guide, but that's how they would look on anyone coming from my standpoint. And since I'm not female, they can't accept that.
No.
And so the first time some critter like Linda comes along, or whomever, may not be Linda, because I can't see anything spiritual in Linda at all. I can't see anything that would attract someone like John, who claims to be spiritual. But, you know, I asked him point blank, and I think he resented this. I said, if you've attained this, how in the hell did you ever marry a corrupted Indian witch whose whole family is into black magic?
Probably because he didn't know.
How long do you have to be around that shit before you pick up on it? If you were spiritual, if you're truly spiritual, you don't.
No.
You don't have to be around it any length of time at all.
I would have picked up on it immediately, the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, anyone that's spiritual. But he has sold himself a bill of goods that he has gone through this training or that training. Look, these are not teaching people about spirituality. They are teaching them techniques. It's like learning algebra or trigonometry or solid geometry. That's a technique. It's not teaching you what mathematics is. It's not teaching you what science is, because mathematics and science are 2 different things. Mathematics isn't science. Mathematics is a tool for science.
Yeah.
So when you really get down to what is and what isn't, the fact of the matter is, you're either spiritual or you're not. You don't become spiritual. You recognize your own spirituality and you work to develop it or perfect it or whatever you want to do. But you don't become spiritual. You either realize what is in you that is spiritual, that is of the spirit, or you don't. And for people to say, well, I wasn't spiritual or whatever, if they actually believe that, they're not spiritual. They'll never be spiritual. To them, they're hung up on definitions, and they're hung up like a mathematician is hung up on numbers. He's not got any truth. These numbers represent something. They aren't it.
No.
They're a qualitative, quantitative analysis of something. They're about something. They're not it. And I know tons of people who they can prove Sitchin because of his mathematics or something. They created all these mathematics. It's like a numerologist that sees this fucking number over and over again. How often can you recombine numbers to reach the same number? You can every single time you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to slam numerology without picking on astrology.
Yeah.
There's something to astrology. As long as you have women that cycle, and that cycle is affected by astral movement, gravity wave, or whatever, the reality on the planet is going to have an astrological meaning, astrological import, astrological factor, because women make up half of the reality here. The female psyche makes up half of the reality here.
And the universe is female.
For better or for worse, I might say. You got to let me get away with that.
Well, yeah, okay, just this once. We can live without women, I'm sorry, we just need women. And as the universe is a woman, it's tough, we're just going to have to put up with the rest of us. We are part of something greater, for better or for worse. See, to me, okay, please don't let your head get too big. To me, you're just a dream come true. You really, really are. I was just sitting here just listening to you thinking, I'm in heaven. I've died and gone to heaven. Because everything that you are, everything that you say, you're not perfect in any way, shape or form. But for
God,
me,
no.
No, absolutely not. I'm not saying that you're perfect, but for me, you are perfect. Just everything. Just perfect. Because you just, I don't know. I think you're just everything that I've always been looking for. In many ways, actually. You kind of encompass.
So you'd buy a television set from me?
No, I wouldn't. So that.
You better not.
No, I wouldn't buy a TV set from you.
That hurts my feelings.
I'm sorry, sweetheart.
I'm crushed.
I can just feel that you're crushed. Really can. Totally not. Oh my god. Do you know, I've asked myself so many times, what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something good at some point to deserve this. Seriously.
I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, I bet you bloody know as well, don't you? Well, I must have done something good. Let's just put it like that. Dream come true.
Well, people that talked about J. Edgar Hoover always thought that he was weird because he had that thing about whether a person whose hands he shook was sweaty or not.
Yeah.
If it was sweaty, then he didn't trust him.
No.
I have never tried to use that barometer.
It's the same thing. You can touch someone. You can tell by shaking their hand, and they leave a residue, which is why I try really hard not to bump into people. People leave residues on you and they don't even know.
Yeah.
But what they give away in, I hate the word vibration, but it's the only way to actually describe it correctly. What they give away in vibrations is it's like a sine wave. If they're dishonest or they're not a nice person or they have the capability of being dishonest, it's like a very sharp up and down wave. And if they're not, it's very smooth.
Yeah.
It's very, very smooth. But you pick it up more when someone's dishonest than if someone isn't dishonest. You tend to sort of let it fly by and not even notice it, and you're just comfortable in someone's company. Whereas the other way, when you go to the other end of the scale, it's incredibly uncomfortable to be in certain people's company. And I've been in company with some people where I've literally felt physically sick, and I've literally wanted to run away from the whole scene. And they're not nice people at all. But I always thought everybody else felt the same thing. So I used to say to people, don't you feel a bit weird around this person? And some people would say, yeah, a little bit. Now you mention it. And most people would go, no, why? I just think, okay, told you a little bit strange, dear. Yeah.
And maybe I'll have an eggnog and scotch.
A bit of scotch. It's got to be done.
This will be my last of that, though, for another year.
Really?
I figured, well, I'm going to buy, for the rest of the year, I'm going to buy a half gallon and a quart. And so I bought that. After that's gone, that's it for the year. It will be about this time next year before I'll do it again.
That's if we're all still here this time next year.
If we're still here.
If we're still here.
I figure that's a big if.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and I hate to say this, you guys know better off than we are. You're really not.
Do you know why?
I'm more worried about you than I am about myself.
In the dead of night, sometimes I think that I don't want it to still be going on next year. If we haven't sorted it out and got our asses in gear within the next 6 months, 6 to 8 months, well, I have to keep doing this year after year after year. And just thinking, oh my God, it's not getting any better, it's not getting any better.
Oh, they're going to do something stupid.
Well, let's kind of hope that they do, because then we can actually see the mantle of people. I think we need to see the whites of people's eyes before anything's really going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen on its own, if I'm honestly truthful. I think until we're cornered and dropped.
Well, that's what I keep saying. I keep saying there are a lot of people, these sheeple, these human debris and all that. I've said it myself, but I've said something else too. I've said, you don't know what these people are going to do when they start losing loved ones, neighbors, knowing these are not criminals, these are not terrorists, and they're disappearing, and they don't have a job. They already have every reason in the world to start talking about overthrowing the fucking machine. When that happens, you don't know what they're going to do, and neither do the powers that be. Now, the powers that be are different in the aspect that they are self-deluded monsters. We are not.
No.
So be at the ready, because I firmly believe that when the water is tested, what'll happen will be something no one can predict, and no one can even guess at the magnitude of it one way or the other. So I know what my job is, and I was saying this very thing to this guy who is a group leader for the militia here in Fort Worth. And I was saying the same thing to him, and I said, our job is to make sure that there's a resistance that is noticed.
Yeah.
And I said, we may be the first ones. And I said, if I have to do it by myself, but unless it's organized, the chances that it'll be covered up by the media and not carried will be that much greater. But if we can spark enough of a reaction that it can't be, we've done our job. And he said, I agree. He said, I agree. You look at this as a matter that we are up against the wall. They're either going to take us or we get something going that brings them down. Now, we have nothing to lose by resisting and by taking whatever risks we have to take. And whatever happens, I mean, it'll probably be that they'll kill us. It probably will be, depending on how early in the game it is.
Yeah.
But they get their hands on us, they're going to kill us anyway.
Oh, exactly. So, like I said,
so might as well die for something you believe in rather than give in like a cow or a horse or a goat. Because we're not cows, goats, or horses. We're people. And we ought to have something on our heads besides what we eat and shit next.
And one of the things that I'm trying to get the point across is that death is not the end. So if you remove the fear of death, then you remove many, many fears that people have. You know, I'm not scared of dying.
That's right. That's why I did it. Look, I've never done this before. I've always let people just, I've always been like an executioner. But this time's different. This time, this time I want to do something different. And I'm seeing it affect ET too.
Really?
Yeah. The fact that I've held my ground over this, and the fact that I've argued and that I've done the things I have, like taking human-bound children elsewhere and showing that they fit in, they don't have a divided consciousness, and all that, I think that it's made a difference. I don't know that it has, because but the fact of the matter is, I can point to some examples that indicate it might have. And the fact of the matter is that E.T. didn't have to visit Eisenhower and tell him about the EBs and that we can get rid of them. They didn't have to do that.
But they did.
But they did.
Yeah, they did.
They did. And they also took over some EBs and used them to get those balls in that little girl's nose.
Yeah, quite.
And they kept the EBs from putting that little girl under. And when it didn't work the first time, they came back and did it again. That's never been heard of before.
Well, maybe it's, we're so unusual. This is such a critical time. from my perspective now, I can expand my mind, and I'm outside of the earth, literally looking down on the earth and looking at everybody looking at us. And it's like, I don't know, writing times, like, what are we going to do? I don't know, it looks good.
When you do that, you are capable of coming to conclusions formed with the help and aid of the principle of inevitability, where you see you can almost see the future you can see something that's going to happen in the most highly probable sense that it's almost inevitable. That can become just like looking into the future. And as you develop this, you will actually be able, at some point or another, to see into the future.
Wow.
That capability is there. That's what Nostradamus had. That's what Saint Germain had. And others that I could mention, but I won't.
Okay. Well, I shall start.
But Nostradamus and I'll just say that if Merlin were true, if the myth around Merlin were true, he had it too.
Okay.
If the myth were true. There's so many things that come out, be discovered by brilliant people that are looking for those answers as we speak, that I want them to have all the credit.
Yeah,
and you're going to live to see some things established that's going to change the knowledge base about the Dark Ages.
Brilliant.
You're going to live to see that. And when it happens, the people that find it and everything deserve all the credit.
Oh, wow.
Don't they?
Yeah,
Don't they?
Yeah, they do. Very much so.
They're going to take hits, everything, but it's going to come out there right.
Okay, I should remember that.
You might find out the truth about dragons, too.
Oh, wow. Dragons?
Well, the one thing that I'm fond of pointing out is that about the Middle Ages, at least in the Middle Ages, there was born an age of wonder and splendor. Following the Dark Ages came the age of incredulity, in which anything and everything that offended the church was denied any good and condemned as either heresy or witchcraft.
Okay.
So when did the Dark Ages really begin?
A long time ago.
Well, no, they really began after the church became so entrenched as an estate of feudalism that they could punish people for just thinking differently.
God, I'd have been burnt at the stake a long time ago.
You would have.
I would have. No, I've always known.
You would have been burned at the stake. Believe me, my dear, you would have been a witch.
I know.
Just the fact of some of the things that you've said to me would have made you a witch. Yeah. Some man would have been offended and gone to the church and said, I renounce a witch. And they would say, well, we'll look into this, and they would have given you the water test.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if I breathe underwater, yeah. Exactly.
Well, if you didn't survive the water test,
I wasn't a witch.
That you wasn't a witch, but you died, but your soul went to heaven, so they did you a favor, right?
Well, yeah, thanks for that.
Thanks for that. But your children lost you, your husband lost you, your father lost you. Yeah. So it was atrocious.
Oh, the mentality. When you think back to those years, you just think, oh my God, you want to...
They would do it again.
I know they would.
They would do it again. Yeah. What do you think this DNA evidence is? DNA evidence is the same thing because, look, how many times do laboratories make mistakes with samples?
Oh, loads.
40%.
Yeah, loads.
So there was DNA evidence against O.J., and O.J. had to pay $1 million for a lawyer that would stand up and say, we can prove that laboratory results based on DNA are 40%
wrong. Yeah.
Wrong. Not on the basis that what's under the microscope is wrong, but that the people that are running the lab tests are 40% wrong.
Yeah.
Because they make mistakes 40% of the time. So that's what got OJ off. He had any lawyer could have said it. Any lawyer, but it took $1 million to get one to say it.
In that case, he was definitely guilty.
Yeah. There's no doubt he was guilty.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no doubt he was guilty.
Okay. Lovely, lovely chat. Thank you very much.
I'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll speak to you tomorrow.